Sometimes, the most fragile empires aren't built on money or power, but on trust. And when that trust breaks, even the strongest foundations crumble quietly in the dead of night. Mistress texted, "The millionaire at midnight. Pregnant wife? Saw it and packed her bags late at night as the moon cast its pallid glow over a coastal villa." A single text message ignited a storm that no one saw coming. Nathan Hale, a multimillionaire revered for his business acumen, received a cryptic midnight message from a woman who shouldn't have his number in the first place. Cassandra Hale, Nathan's pregnant wife, was already restless from her insomnia in a moment that would alter the course of their lives. She peered at her husband's phone and saw a name she never expected to see. Before dawn, suitcases would be packed, secrets would unravel, and hearts would stand on the brink of ruin. Nathan Hale was the kind of man who attracted attention wherever he went, tall, impeccably dressed, and always radiating an air of self-assured success. He had built his fortune through a series of savvy investments and high-stakes deals. Despite his lofty social circle, Nathan liked to boast that he remained a family man at heart, one committed to his pregnant wife, Cassandra. On this particular evening, a hush enveloped the Hale villa. Only the soft hum of the air conditioning unit and the faint click of a security camera outside broke the silence. Cassandra, nearly 7 months pregnant, lay in bed. Sleep had eluded her for weeks, thanks to the persistent discomfort and anxiety that came with impending motherhood. When she finally managed to drift off, it was often fitful and shallow. Nathan had insisted on a high-tech security system that covered every inch of their estate, so he rarely worried about break-ins or intruders. But as the digital clock on the nightstand struck midnight, a tiny ping shattered the stillness of the room. Normally, Nathan's phone was set to silent. Tonight, it wasn't. An oversight that would set off an irreversible chain of events. Cassandra, half asleep, felt a jolt of curiosity. She turned her head, eyes drawn to the phone screen that briefly illuminated the darkness. She could make out a single name on the notification banner: Vanessa Langford. For a moment, her sleep-fogged mind struggled to recall who that was. The name wasn't immediately familiar among their circle of friends or associates. Still, a gnawing sense of dread took root in her chest. She reached for the phone, hesitating. She was not in the habit of reading Nathan's messages. Their relationship, at least until now, had been built on trust, or so she believed. But the lines were blurring. She remembered that Nathan had arrived home exceptionally late, smelling vaguely of an unfamiliar perfume that he'd casually dismissed as a client's cologne lingering in the air of a meeting room. Nathan stirred. Cassandra's heart pounded, but she couldn't resist. She tapped the screen to view the text. The message was simple, but it carried the weight of an entire storm. "I miss you," it read, followed by a suggestive winking face. The words hit her like a slap. Her skin flushed hot, then cold. Her thoughts spiraled. Who was Vanessa? Why was she texting Nathan at midnight, and why would she say she missed him? She shot a glance at her husband. He was breathing evenly, still asleep, seemingly oblivious to the drama blooming right beside him. Cassandra's eyes returned to the screen. Her thumb hovered for a second, trembling, before she gave in. On impulse, she scrolled back, discovering a thread of messages. The earlier ones were innocuous enough, businesslike, confirming appointments. But they grew more intimate over time, culminating in the midnight confession, "I miss you." A shaky breath escaped Cassandra's lips. She felt her baby move as though sensing her tension. Her free hand instinctively covered her belly, a protective reflex as fear surged. That single text, just 3 words, threatened everything Cassandra had believed in. Everything she had built with Nathan teetered on a precipice. The night stretched onward, but it was filled not with rest, but a storm of confusion and heartbreak she never anticipated. Morning arrived gray and subdued. A cloud cover blanketed the vast Hale property, as if even nature conspired to dim the once brilliant glow that had characterized Nathan and Cassandra's relationship. Cassandra had barely slept. She lay awake, phone clutched in her trembling hand, mind racing with the raw evidence she had uncovered. 100 scenarios looped through her head. Was it emotional, physical, ongoing, over? Yet she said nothing to Nathan. Instead, she rose earlier than usual, ignoring the aches in her back and the dull throb of anxiety behind her temples. She made her way to the kitchen, only to find her appetite evaporating. The moment she smelled coffee brewing, she attempted to steady herself by sipping some water, but her hands continued to shake. Nathan walked in soon after, hair disheveled from sleep, his tie draped carelessly around his neck. He flashed her a warm but distracted smile. "You're up early, Cass," he remarked, kissing her cheek. His affectionate nickname for her, a moniker that once felt so comforting, now sounded hollow. She forced a smile in return. "How was your night?" she asked, feigning casual conversation. In her mind, she rehearsed confronting him with the text, demanding he explain who Vanessa Langford was and why she messaged him in the dead of night, but words failed her. She wasn't sure how to begin a confrontation like this, especially while carrying his child. Nathan shrugged. "I slept fine, though I came home pretty late from that meeting," he said, moving to pour himself a cup of coffee. "I'm sorry if I woke you up." Her gaze lingered on him, searching for any crack in his demeanor, any shred of guilt or apprehension. "It's fine," she said softly, taking another sip of her water. "I just couldn't sleep. Well, the baby's been very active." She pressed a hand to her belly, hoping to ground herself in the one truth she still could trust, the life growing inside her. Nathan walked over, placing his palm gently atop hers. Usually, she would feel a rush of warmth at this simple gesture, a reaffirmation of their bond. This morning, all she felt was an unsettling numbness. "We'll get through it," he said, misinterpreting her unease. "You just have to rest." His concern felt layered in secrets. Now Cassandra swallowed hard. She wanted so badly to spill everything, to scream at him for lying, to beg him to tell her it was all just a misunderstanding. But fear held her tongue. What if she was overreacting? What if Vanessa was just a business contact who'd stepped over the line? She loathed the thought of falsely accusing him, especially while pregnant. Yet the messages she'd seen were undeniably intimate. She glanced at Nathan's phone sitting casually on the counter. "You're right," she finally managed, her voice quivering. "I'll try to rest." But her mind was miles away, churning with questions and possible answers that ranged from innocent to devastating. She excused herself to the living room, where she sat staring at the baby's ultrasound pictures. With each passing minute, her resolve to uncover the truth strengthened. Mid-morning arrived, and Nathan rushed off to a meeting, leaving behind a tenuous calm. Cassandra remained in the house, the silent halls echoing with possibilities she dared not voice yet. But she made a silent promise to herself and to her unborn child. She would get to the bottom of this. The text message would not vanish into the ether. The truth, however ugly, had to come out. By late afternoon, Cassandra decided she couldn't let another night pass without confronting Nathan. She called her best friend, Rachel McAdams, a grounded, no-nonsense lawyer who had known Cassandra since college. Rachel worked for a prestigious law firm in the city. If anyone could offer a level-headed perspective, it would be her. Rachel arrived before sunset. The moment she set eyes on Cassandra's tear-streaked face, Rachel's expression darkened with concern. Without preamble, Cassandra led her into the sunroom, overlooking a carefully manicured garden, a garden that once brought Cassandra great joy but now felt suffocatingly perfect, a stark contrast to the chaos roaring inside her. "I found messages on Nathan's phone," Cassandra confessed, hands twisting anxiously in her lap, "from someone named Vanessa Langford." Her voice cracked as she uttered the name, and for a second she looked as though she might break down completely. Her voice caught in her throat as she recalled the exact wording. "I miss you." Rachel's sharp eyes narrowed. "Are you sure about the context?" she asked gently, though her tone harbored a skeptical edge. "Could it be a misunderstanding?" Cassandra shook her head. There were multiple messages. Some sounded suggestive, and he never mentioned this woman before, even though he usually tells me about his clients or business partners. Her tone grew bitter. "He tells me everything except this." Rachel glanced around, ensuring they were alone. "Is he around now?" "No. He left for a meeting, but he should be back soon," Cassandra replied. "I don't know how to handle this. I'm pregnant, Rachel. I feel stupid, but I need to know." She hugged her belly instinctively, as if trying to protect her unborn child from the emotional storm swirling around them. Rachel reached out, clasping Cassandra's hand. "You're not stupid. You have every right to demand honesty." She paused, then locked eyes with Cassandra. "Confront him. Ask for an explanation. If he tries to lie, you'll know. Her tone was firmer now, shifting from friend to defender. Just then, the sound of a car engine reverberated from the driveway. Nathan's Maserati had returned. Cassandra's stomach lurched with newfound determination. She rose from her seat. Rachel offered to stay for support, but Cassandra wanted to do this on her own. She needed the truth, straight from Nathan, without any external pressure. She found Nathan in his study, shrugging off his blazer. Her heart pounded, but she didn't let it deter her. "We need to talk," she said, her voice trembling only slightly. Nathan turned, eyebrows lifted. "Everything okay?" She gestured for him to sit. He obliged, confusion evident on his face. For a moment, Cassandra faltered, but she steeled herself. "Last night, Vanessa Langford texted you." She studied his features for any sign of recognition or guilt. He blinked. "Vanessa, she's an acquaintance from a previous business trip," he stammered. His voice lacked conviction, like someone reading from a script they no longer believed. But the dryness in his tone betrayed him. "It's nothing serious." His dismissive words ignited a spark of anger in Cassandra. "Don't lie to me, Nathan," she said, her voice rising. "I saw the messages. They weren't businesslike. She said she missed you. Are you having an affair?" Nathan's mouth fell open. Silence filled the study like a thundercloud, ready to break. Finally, he exhaled. "It started innocently," he muttered. "We met at a conference in San Francisco a few months ago. It was never meant to become anything more than a casual friendship. She was a consultant, someone I hired temporarily." His words sounded rehearsed, like lines he'd repeated in his mind 100 times, hoping they'd somehow sound less damning. Cassandra felt her chest tighten. "A casual friendship? That's what you call midnight texts that say, 'I miss you'?" Nathan buried his face in his hands. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. "I never planned to hurt you, Cassandra. I swear. It was a moment of weakness." His voice cracked on the last word. Tears welled in Cassandra's eyes. The harshness of his confession crashed down on her. The man she thought she knew best had withheld a secret that threatened to shatter their family, their unborn child's future. And yet she demanded more. "Tell me everything," she said through clenched teeth. "Every detail." The air between them pulsed with pain and anticipation. What followed was a torrent of half-explanations and muddled justifications. Nathan insisted it was only emotional, that he had never slept with Vanessa. But that single midnight text suggested something more intimate, something not so easily explained away. And Cassandra felt her world spinning. By the time Nathan finished, she didn't know what to believe anymore. In the end, she bolted from the study, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't even stand to look at him. The storm of confessions had arrived, and it threatened to wash away every last vestige of trust they once shared. Weeks earlier, Nathan had attended a high-profile entrepreneurship conference in San Francisco, an event hosted by the renowned businessman Malcolm Everett. Among the sea of power suits and dazzling city lights, he'd felt both in his element and oddly out of place, as his mind occasionally drifted home to Cassandra. It was at a cocktail reception that Nathan first noticed Vanessa. She stood near the bar, a sleek black dress highlighting her tall, lithe frame. Her dark hair was swept back into an elegant twist, and her eyes sparkled with determination. There was something disarming about her confidence, almost dangerous in its precision. Nathan had wandered over with professional intentions, curious about any new business leads. Vanessa, a freelance consultant, introduced herself with measured confidence, mentioning she'd done market analyses for several Fortune 500 companies. They exchanged business cards. She laughed at his dry jokes, listened too intently, complimented not just his work but the way he carried himself. Nathan recalled Vanessa praising him for his philanthropic endeavors, particularly the charity for underprivileged children that he and Cassandra supported. That mention made him smile. He was used to compliments on his wealth or business savvy, but rarely his charity. Her genuine interest in his causes ignited an odd sense of connection. When the conference sessions resumed the next morning, they sat side by side, discussing strategies and new market opportunities. During a lunch break, Vanessa invited Nathan to a quieter corner of the lobby for coffee. He initially hesitated. Cassandra had asked him to spend his free time calling her to check on her pregnancy, but curiosity got the better of him. One conversation led to another, and before the conference ended, Nathan found himself drawn to the comfort of Vanessa's undivided attention. It felt almost like a confessional, sharing stories of his life and successes while sipping overpriced cappuccinos in the hotel lounge. At first, Nathan convinced himself there was no harm in forging a new business connection. Vanessa's insights were valuable. She offered novel perspectives that could help him expand into new markets. Yet somewhere between the professional consultations and the late-night drinks, lines blurred. Nathan found himself opening up about personal frustrations, the mounting pressure of fatherhood, the fear that he wouldn't be enough for Cassandra and their child, and the isolation that often accompanied his success. Vanessa listened intently, her gaze never wavering. She sympathized, even venturing to share her own regrets about a failed relationship in her past and the toll it had taken on her confidence. In those intimate after-hours discussions, Nathan felt a rush of understanding he hadn't experienced in years. It was thrilling and terrifying all at once. By the time the conference ended, Nathan had promised to keep in touch. He told himself he was simply securing an asset for future business endeavors. But deep down, a seed of betrayal had already been planted. The text messages started as professional follow-ups and escalated into personal banter, light flirtation, then heavier insinuations. Each message, each moment of stolen intimacy became an addiction Nathan couldn't quite shake. And so when Vanessa's final text read, "I miss you," he found it difficult to brush off, even though guilt gnawed at him. Every time he pictured Cassandra at home, nurturing the life they'd created together, now, as he stood in his study with Cassandra's demands echoing in his mind, the weight of those choices threatened to bury him. The seeds he had sown in San Francisco had grown into a monstrous reality that could tear his marriage apart. The question now was whether there was any chance of redemption, or if the betrayal had sunk its roots too deep to ever be removed. Vanessa Langford hadn't set out to be the other woman. She grew up in a modest suburb of Tacoma, Washington, in a family that struggled to make ends meet. From a young age, she had resolved that she wouldn't remain confined to a life of limitations. She devoured books on finance, studied relentlessly, and eventually earned a scholarship to a reputable business school. Her ambition paid off. She landed consulting gigs with some of the most prominent corporations in the country. But personal relationships weren't as straightforward for Vanessa. Her father had left her mother for another woman when Vanessa was only 10 years old, leaving her with deep-seated trust issues. Vanessa vowed that she would never become her mother. Desperate, abandoned, left to fend for herself. In her eyes, love was a liability unless it was on her terms. In her mid-20s, Vanessa had a serious relationship with a man named Carter Jameson, a startup founder brimming with promise. He was charming and ambitious, much like Nathan, but Carter's ambition turned out to be destructive. He became consumed by gambling, eventually losing their shared savings. He lied for months, promising deals that didn't exist, forging financial statements, even borrowing in her name. When Vanessa discovered the extent of his debts, her trust in him eroded, and she left before he could drag her down further. The betrayal left her emotionally scarred, forcing her to rebuild her life from the ground up. By the time she met Nathan Hale in San Francisco, Vanessa was a determined businesswoman who preferred short, calculative entanglements. She recognized Nathan's influence and wealth immediately. Initially, she viewed him as a stepping stone, a gateway to new opportunities, bigger contracts, but something about him nudged a vulnerability within her. Despite her pledge to never rely on anyone, she found herself emotionally drawn to this wealthy man who was secretly yearning for an emotional outlet. His eyes held an emptiness she recognized in herself. Vanessa's recollection of their first evening together was crystal clear. It was far from the usual business pleasantries. Nathan was sincere, almost naive at times, and that intrigued her. She told herself she was simply exploring possibilities, both professional and personal. As they began texting each other after the conference, Vanessa recognized the red flags. Nathan was married, and his wife was pregnant. But the rational warnings in her head were drowned out by the undeniable pull she felt whenever their messages flashed on her phone. She told herself she wasn't breaking up a family. She told herself Nathan was the one choosing to respond, choosing to confide in her. Late-night texts turned into occasional video calls. When Nathan's face lit up at the sight of her, Vanessa felt wanted in a way she hadn't in years. It was a dangerous kind of warmth, one that made her forget the consequences. She knew she was treading into dangerous territory, but each digital interaction fed her illusions. She believed Nathan might actually be dissatisfied with his life, that perhaps he was searching for something more than a business empire and a seemingly perfect domestic life. Now, in the wake of the message she had sent at midnight, Vanessa could sense that their carefully balanced secret was unraveling. Nathan's responses had grown shorter, laced with tension. Part of her dreaded this outcome. She was not interested in public scandal, yet part of her thrived on the excitement, the power to command the attention of a man who ostensibly had everything. It was dangerous and selfish, and still, she couldn't stop rereading his last reply, hoping for softness in between the lines. Little did she know her midnight text would trigger a landslide of consequences for everyone involved, including herself. The morning after Cassandra discovered the full extent of Nathan's secret felt like an eternity. She had spent a sleepless night in a guest bedroom away from Nathan. When the sun's rays finally crept across the plush carpet, she found herself staring at the half-packed suitcase she had dragged out sometime during the night. Inside were clothes she couldn't remember folding, a baby onesie she'd unconsciously tucked between blouses, and a printed ultrasound picture caught in the zipper flap. Despite the swirl of emotions, she wasn't entirely sure if she was truly ready to leave. Across the hallway, Nathan wrestled with his own turmoil. He barely slept either. The knowledge that he had wounded the woman he loved gnawed at him. Every creak of the hallway outside the guest room felt like judgment. He was determined to salvage his marriage, but he had no idea how. Feeling cornered, he texted Rachel McAdams in desperation, knowing she was not only Cassandra's best friend, but also a lawyer. If anyone understood what Cassandra was going through, it was Rachel. "Please come," he wrote. "I want to fix this." The text made Rachel bristle. She was torn between wanting to stand by Cassandra and the faint possibility that Nathan might genuinely be repentant. Reluctantly, she agreed to meet him at the villa at dawn, primarily to ensure Cassandra had support. Her car ride over was silent except for the storm of thoughts raging in her mind. What if this man breaks her again? Just after sunrise, Rachel arrived, her expression a portrait of calm authority. Nathan opened the door, his eyes bloodshot. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Rachel stepped inside, looking around at the pristine foyer before her gaze fell on Nathan. "I'm not here for small talk," she stated evenly. "Where's Cassandra?" "She's upstairs," Nathan replied. "I need your help, Rachel. I made a mistake. A big one." Rachel's eyes flashed with measured anger. "Mistake is one word for it. You hurt her, Nathan. She's pregnant and vulnerable, and you let someone else come between you." He swallowed hard. "I know, and I hate myself for it." He paused, taking a moment to gather his thoughts. "I'm willing to do anything to make it right." "Then start by being honest," Rachel said, marching upstairs to find Cassandra. She discovered her friend in the guest bedroom, eyes rimmed with red, resting against the headboard with a stoicism that belied her heartbreak. "I'm here," Rachel said softly, hugging her. Cassandra let out a small sob, relief washing over her at the sight of a familiar ally. "I'm so confused," she admitted. "Part of me wants to run away and never look back. The other part of me—" She placed a hand protectively on her belly. "I don't know what's best anymore." Rachel rubbed her shoulders. "You have options. If you want to leave, you can. If you want to stay, that's also your choice. But first, you need to talk this out." Slowly, Cassandra stood, bracing herself against the bed. She nodded, letting Rachel guide her back downstairs to face Nathan in the living room. Nathan waited, anxiety etched into every line of his face. They sat. Cassandra cleared her throat, but before she could speak, Nathan blurted out, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Cassandra." His voice cracked. "I've cut off contact with Vanessa. I blocked her number this morning." It was a start, but Cassandra wasn't sure if it was enough. She glanced at Rachel, who gave a small nod, silently encouraging her to continue. The confrontation was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Dawn's gentle light illuminated the villa's spacious interiors, but it couldn't dispel the shadows of betrayal lurking in every corner. Cassandra took a deep breath, preparing to either rebuild her life with Nathan or walk away forever. One way or another, the day's revelations would leave none of them untouched. That morning, with Rachel present, Cassandra demanded answers from Nathan. The conversation was tense, each word brimming with anger and pain. Nathan began recounting every interaction with Vanessa, from their first meeting in San Francisco to the impulsive, late-night texts. Although there were no explicit confirmations of physical intimacy, the emotional entanglement was undeniable. "I never realized how lonely I felt," Nathan said, looking at Cassandra with watery eyes. "You were always so focused on the baby, on building our future, and I was just there, feeling inadequate, worried I wouldn't be a good father. Vanessa listened to me in a way I hadn't felt in a long time." His voice trembled, each word layered in shame and need. Cassandra's jaw tightened. "I was focused on our child because this is a monumental responsibility, Nathan. That doesn't justify confiding in another woman, especially not in such an intimate way." Her voice was cold steel, but her hands were shaking. Rachel watched, her arms folded, ensuring this remained a constructive conversation rather than a shouting match. "Emotional affairs can be just as devastating as physical ones," she interjected. "You broke her trust." Nathan bowed his head, the weight of guilt apparent. "I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you let me. I've already told my assistant Blake to cancel any meetings with Vanessa. I've severed all professional ties. I'm serious about this, Cassandra." His hands clutched the edge of the couch cushion, knuckles white. For a long moment, Cassandra said nothing. Her thoughts spiraled to the weeks of missed calls while Nathan was at that conference. The nights he came home late, the subtle changes in his demeanor. Pieces of a puzzle snapped into place, but there was still something gnawing at her. "When you say you ended it, did you tell her it's over, or are you just ignoring her texts?" "I blocked her number," Nathan admitted. "I haven't spoken to her directly since last night." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "That leaves a door open, Nathan. If you're serious about mending your marriage, you need to be transparent. Cassandra needs closure." "Call her," Cassandra said, her voice trembling. "Right now, in front of me. Tell her it's over." The demand hit like a gauntlet thrown between them. Nathan winced, but after a moment, he pulled out his phone. He unblocked Vanessa's number, then tapped the screen. The ringing tone echoed through the silent living room. Cassandra's heart pounded in her chest. Each ring felt like an earthquake. Vanessa answered on the third ring, her voice groggy but tinged with hope. "Nathan, is everything okay?" He swallowed hard. "No," he said. "I made a mistake. This has to stop. Don't text or call me again. I'm working on my marriage. Goodbye." Silence filled the line for a beat, and then Vanessa's voice, tight with emotion, rasped, "You owe me more than that, Nathan." But he ended the call. Cassandra stood there, tears brimming. Rachel gently placed a hand on her arm, steadying her. No one spoke for a few seconds, as though they needed to process the finality of what had just happened. Nathan's shoulders slumped, relief and regret mingling in his eyes. However, Cassandra could not ignore a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach. Betrayals of the heart rarely conclude with a single phone call. In her bones, she sensed that this drama was far from over. While Nathan might have severed the connection, Vanessa Langford wasn't someone who would quietly bow out. More secrets could still lie in wait, ready to surface at the worst possible time. Vanessa had been humiliated, but she wasn't powerless, and hurt people with nothing left to lose were the ones who often detonated the loudest explosions. Word of Nathan's rumored indiscretion began to ripple through their social circles. Although the details remained murky, the Hales were a high-profile couple. Nathan, the savvy investor and philanthropist, and Cassandra, the refined hostess known for her charity galas. Gossip spread quickly in such elite environments, often distorted beyond recognition. Socialites whispered over champagne, junior execs speculated during rooftop mixers, and the tabloids had already run one blind item suspiciously close to their timeline. Among the first to privately reach out to Cassandra was Lauren Beauchamp, an old friend from her university days, who was now married to a technology magnate. Lauren's messages were cautious but supportive, offering a sympathetic ear. She didn't ask questions, just said, "If you need to disappear for a while, my Aspen house is yours." On the other hand, there was Genevieve Lockwood, Cassandra's longtime rival. Genevieve relished the power shifts in their circle and wasted no time fueling rumors of Nathan's improprieties. At a recent charity auction, she had been overheard making pointed remarks about loyalty being such a rare currency among power couples. Her smirk said everything. To Cassandra's surprise, Nathan's mother, Veronica Hale, showed up at their doorstep one afternoon without warning. Veronica was a force of nature, a woman who had secured her own fortune through interior design long before Nathan found success. She was immaculately dressed, her posture erect, eyes sharp with concern. "I heard whispers," Veronica said the moment Cassandra opened the door. "Is something going on between you and Nathan?" Her tone was clipped, but Cassandra could sense genuine worry behind it. Before Cassandra could respond, Nathan appeared, hair slightly disheveled, wearing the expression of someone grappling with too many burdens. "Mother," he said, forcing a polite smile, "you should have called." Veronica squared her shoulders. "And give you a chance to brush me off? I think not." Her gaze flickered between her son and daughter-in-law. "Tell me, what's happening?" Reluctantly, they guided Veronica to the living room. Over strained pleasantries, the truth emerged in cautious fragments. While Cassandra refrained from delving into graphic detail, she made it clear Nathan had maintained an inappropriate relationship with another woman. Veronica's jaw clenched. "How could you do this?" she said, glaring at Nathan. "You have a pregnant wife? A child on the way. Have you lost your senses?" Nathan's face paled. "I made a mistake, Mother. I'm trying to fix it." Cassandra found herself surprised by Veronica's reaction. She had expected her mother-in-law to make excuses for Nathan, or to blame Cassandra for some perceived failing as a wife. Instead, Veronica directed her harshest criticism at Nathan. Then she turned to Cassandra, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "I'm not one to overstep," she said. "But if you decide you need a break, somewhere else to stay, I have a cottage in Mendocino. It's quiet, secluded, yours to use if you want." Cassandra was touched by the offer, though she wasn't ready to decide whether running away was the best option. Nathan, on the other hand, looked like he'd been punched in the gut. He adored his mother, always seeking her approval. To see her side so unambiguously with Cassandra shook him. Later that evening, Lauren Beauchamp called again, this time urging Cassandra to consider joining her for a weekend at a spa retreat. "It'll help you clear your head," Lauren suggested. Meanwhile, Genevieve Lockwood posted cryptic social media updates. Sometimes, the wealthiest families have the darkest secrets, followed by various emojis that fueled more speculation. Nathan sensed the tension rising from every corner, family, friends, even business associates, who watched him with weary eyes. His father, Douglas Hale, a retired banker, sent him a curt message. "Handle your affairs, son. Don't let this overshadow everything you've built." Allies closed ranks around Cassandra, offering her solace and escape routes. Enemies gloated or spread rumors, waiting for her to crumble. Nathan found himself on an island, grappling with guilt and the real possibility of losing everything. In a world where appearances could be everything, the cracks in the Hales' marriage were now on public display, and the hungry eyes of high society were fixed upon the drama unfolding. A week after Nathan's phone call to Vanessa, Cassandra and Rachel met for lunch at a quiet bistro downtown, seated by a window that overlooked the bustling street. They spoke in hushed tones about the path forward. Cassandra looked tired, her cheeks slightly hollow from stress, yet her eyes held a spark of determination. "How are you holding up?" Rachel asked, sipping her herbal tea. Cassandra sighed. "Better than last week. I've mostly avoided public events, but the gossip hasn't stopped. And Nathan," her voice trailed off. "He's trying. He canceled a business trip to Tokyo, says he wants to stay by my side. He even offered to attend counseling with me." Rachel nodded thoughtfully. "That might help. Sometimes a third party can mediate these emotions and confessions better than we can on our own." They discussed the legal aspects of separation, but Cassandra wasn't ready to make that leap. Despite her heartbreak, she couldn't ignore her love for Nathan, or her desire to maintain a stable family for their unborn child. Still, the fear of making a mistake, of staying with someone who might break her again, clung to her like fog. "I just need some assurance that he really means it," she said, stirring her soup absently. Her voice barely rose above a whisper, as if afraid the truth might crack her open. The next day, Nathan arranged a private session with Dr. Helena Quinn, a well-respected marriage counselor who had guided several high-profile couples through tumultuous times. The counselor's office was discreetly located in an elegant townhouse, ensuring that paparazzi or curious onlookers wouldn't easily spot them. Once inside, they sat opposite Dr. Quinn, who wore a compassionate expression. "Tell me what brings you here," she began, her voice calm and reassuring. Cassandra inhaled shakily. "We're expecting a baby in about 2 months," she said, glancing briefly at Nathan. "And I recently found out he's been emotionally involved with someone else." The words stung even in repetition. Nathan interlaced his fingers, staring down at them. "I betrayed her trust. I let another person fill a void. I didn't know how to communicate about it, but I want to make this right." His voice broke midway through, a crack that wasn't just guilt, but desperation. Dr. Quinn asked pointed yet gentle questions, drawing out details of their relationship. Cassandra admitted she'd been preoccupied with the pregnancy, sometimes forgetting to check in on Nathan's emotional state. Nathan confessed to harboring anxiety about fatherhood, which led him to seek validation elsewhere. For the first time, they were saying the things they had both been too scared to voice. It was painful, but liberating. Each word, a small piece of a puzzle they were trying to reassemble. Over the next few sessions, they delved deeper. Dr. Quinn encouraged them to speak openly about their fears. For Cassandra, it was the dread of raising a child with a partner she couldn't trust. For Nathan, it was the terror of inadequacy, the fear he'd never match up to the expectations of a perfect husband and father. There were moments when Cassandra wanted to scream, other times when she found herself softening too quickly. The tug-of-war between betrayal and longing was relentless. Some sessions ended in tears, others in long embraces. Bit by bit, they learned to communicate with a level of honesty that had been missing. Nathan began sharing daily updates with Cassandra about his business deals and interactions, trying to rebuild trust through transparency. Cassandra tentatively opened her heart, allowing the chance for forgiveness to take root. However, in the back of her mind, the specter of Vanessa loomed, along with the rumors swirling through their social sphere. Cassandra wasn't naive. She knew that a second chance could be shattered if old wounds were reopened, or if Vanessa decided to reinsert herself into their lives. For now, though, Cassandra clung to the hope that through genuine effort and counseling, they might still salvage the life they once cherished, and give their child the secure family it deserved. Just as it seemed like Nathan and Cassandra were inching toward calmer waters, a ripple of new trouble emerged. Genevieve Lockwood, ever the opportunist, had her own business dealings with Vanessa Langford. Genevieve had secretly hired Vanessa to conduct market research for an upcoming venture. But what began as a professional collaboration quickly morphed into a strategic manipulation. Genevieve saw Vanessa's heartbreak not as weakness, but as leverage. Over a luncheon in a posh city restaurant, Genevieve probed Vanessa for details about her entanglement with Nathan Hale. Vanessa, still reeling from Nathan's curt phone call, found herself both indignant and oddly longing for closure. She confessed pieces of her story to Genevieve, how she had met Nathan at a conference, how their conversations turned intimate, and how he'd suddenly ended everything with a single phone call, offering no real apology or explanation. There was no plan, just a sense of spiraling confusion she hadn't anticipated. Genevieve feigned sympathy. "You must feel terribly used," she cooed, sipping her champagne. "Nathan always puts on a noble facade, but trust me, beneath that gentlemanly veneer, he's ruthless. I wouldn't be surprised if he's stringing you along for a better business deal." Her tone dripped with just enough poison to sound convincing. Vanessa's eyes flared with pain and anger. "I thought there was something real between us," she murmured, "but maybe I was just another contract he could break." Genevieve laid a manicured hand over Vanessa's. "It's not too late to set the record straight. If you wanted to talk to the press, I'm sure they'd be eager to hear your side." She pulled out a sleek black card and slid it across the table. On it, the name of a well-known PR handler notorious for discreet exposés. Vanessa tensed. "I'm not looking for a scandal. My career is based on discretion. I can't afford to be at the center of tabloid gossip. Genevieve withdrew her hand, a sly smile curving her lips. I understand. But if you change your mind, know that there are people like me who would ensure your perspective is heard, especially if it means taking Nathan Hale down a peg. She said it sweetly, like an offer of tea laced with arsenic. Meanwhile, back at the Hale villa, Nathan and Cassandra tentatively attempted to resume a semblance of normalcy. They occasionally attended small dinner parties, steering clear of large public gatherings to avoid sensational headlines. However, an undercurrent of unease colored every social interaction. Friends wore polite smiles, but Cassandra could sense the curiosity in their eyes, the unspoken questions on their tongues. Whispers followed her through hallways like perfume, faint but unmistakable. One evening, as they dined with Lauren Beauchamp and her husband Luke, Lauren mentioned having run into Genevieve. She seems quite chummy with a new consultant, she remarked casually, cutting into her steak. Some woman named Vanessa. Cassandra felt the blood drain from her face. Nathan set down his fork abruptly. Vanessa is now working for Genevieve? He asked, voice taut. Lauren shrugged. That's what Genevieve implied. She was dropping hints left and right. You know how she loves stirring the pot. A tense silence followed. Cassandra forced herself to breathe evenly. She suspected Genevieve was gleaning information and possibly twisting Vanessa's bitterness into a weapon. The question was, how far would Genevieve go to disrupt their fragile peace? Later that night, Cassandra and Nathan lay awake in bed. The air between them was thick with unspoken worries. If Vanessa harbored resentment, and if Genevieve sensed an opportunity for revenge, there was a real possibility they could tear down the progress Nathan and Cassandra had made in rebuilding trust. Together, they had weathered one storm. But the horizon now threatened another. This time, the allies and enemies were murkier, and the next betrayal could come from anywhere. A few days passed in tense anticipation. Cassandra busied herself with preparations for the baby's arrival, setting up the nursery with soft pastel colors, sorting tiny clothes gifted by well-wishers, and double-checking appointment dates with her obstetrician, Dr. Lucia Montoya. The nursery had once been a symbol of hope. Now it served as a fragile haven from the swirling uncertainty beyond its pastel walls. Nathan, on the other hand, threw himself into business. He arranged strategy sessions, made deals, and worked tirelessly to ensure no scandal tainted his professional reputation. If the rumor mill became too loud, shareholders might lose confidence, and investors could withdraw. After all, he had built his empire largely on personal branding, the image of a philanthropic, family-oriented millionaire. Nathan couldn't shake the sense that Genevieve Lockwood and Vanessa Langford had formed a connection. If Genevieve found a way to spotlight Vanessa's side of the story, it could become headline fodder. The press thrived on tales of adultery and betrayal among the wealthy. In a last-ditch effort to prevent disaster, Nathan arranged a private meeting with Genevieve at an upscale restaurant. He hoped to negotiate some kind of ceasefire. Genevieve arrived fashionably late, a smug smile playing on her lips. Draped in a designer dress, she exuded confidence, fully aware of Nathan's precarious position. "Nathan," she purred, taking a seat opposite him. "What a pleasant surprise." He forced a polite smile. "Genevieve, I appreciate you coming. I've heard you're working with Vanessa Langford." Her eyes glittered with mischief. "I am. She's quite talented, you know. Shame you didn't keep her around. She might have added real value to your portfolio." Nathan leaned forward, clasping his hands. "I'm not here to discuss business strategy. I just want you to understand the gravity of the situation. This scandal, if it's blown out of proportion, will affect more than just me. Cassandra is pregnant." Genevieve raised a perfectly arched eyebrow. "Let me guess. You want me to ensure Vanessa keeps quiet? Perhaps dangle a settlement?" Nathan swallowed hard, choosing his words carefully. "I'm simply asking for discretion. If Vanessa has any grievances, let them be addressed privately. I'm willing to compensate her for any inconvenience." A laugh escaped Genevieve's glossy lips. "You want to buy her silence? Oh, Nathan, you never cease to amuse me. And this from the man who prides himself on charity and moral high ground." Anger flared in Nathan's chest, but he kept his tone controlled. "I'm trying to protect my family from unnecessary humiliation. If you have any compassion." Genevieve waved a hand dismissively. Spare me the moral lecture. Compassion is not my currency, Nathan. I thrive on influence. Perhaps you can offer me something more valuable than hush money. Nathan's jaw tightened. He knew Genevieve was angling for a seat on the board of one of his philanthropic organizations, or access to certain high-profile contacts. She was always maneuvering for power. "Name your price," he said quietly. Genevieve smiled, leaning back in her chair. "I'll let you know," she whispered, then stood up. "Enjoy the rest of your meal." As she sauntered away, Nathan felt a cold sweat trickle down his spine. The price of power, it seemed, was measured not just in money, but in loyalty, reputation, and moral compromise. He realized that even if he managed to keep Vanessa from unleashing a scandal, he'd be indebted to Genevieve in a way that might haunt him for years. And still, there was no guarantee that Vanessa would adhere to Genevieve's game plan. With every step Nathan took to protect his family, he felt another piece of his integrity slip away. He was learning that in the world of high society, everything, friendship, loyalty, and even love, had its price. And he was dangerously close to paying it in full. As the tension mounted, Cassandra found herself on the verge of giving birth, sooner than expected. Stress had taken its toll, and during her latest checkup, Dr. Lucia Montoya advised her to remain calm and avoid any emotional upheavals. But fate had other plans. One stormy evening, while Nathan was finishing a conference call in his home office, Cassandra's phone buzzed. To her shock, the caller ID displayed Vanessa Langford. Her heart pounded as she answered, apprehension twisting her stomach into knots. "You deserve the truth," Vanessa said without introduction. Her voice was weary, almost resigned. "Nathan wants to sweep everything under the rug, but I can't live with rumors swirling around that I'm some vamp who seduced him for profit." There was a crack in her voice, the kind that suggested she'd repeated those words too many times in her head already. Cassandra swallowed hard. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, voice taut. "I'm meeting Genevieve tomorrow," Vanessa said. "She wants me to speak to a journalist friend of hers, someone who can spin this story in a way that'll hurt Nathan's standing. She claims she can help me salvage my reputation. But I realize now, this is a game to her. Nathan offered me compensation to stay silent, but I need more than money to clear my conscience." Her tone was conflicted, defensive, yet aching for someone to understand. Cassandra's mind reeled. "So what do you want from me?" Vanessa paused. "I want to meet in person. No Genevieve, no Nathan. Just you and me. Let's set the record straight." A beat passed before she added, softer this time, "I don't want to carry this anymore either." Against her better judgment, Cassandra agreed, her need for closure outweighing her caution. They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe the next morning. The moment she hung up, her pulse refused to settle. She clutched the edge of the table like it might anchor her. By the time Cassandra ended the call, her hands trembled so violently she nearly dropped the phone. She made her way to Nathan, who was just wrapping up his video conference. "She called me," Cassandra said, her voice shaking. "Vanessa wants to meet." Nathan's eyes widened with alarm. "Are you serious? She's playing a dangerous game with Genevieve. Let me go instead." Cassandra shook her head firmly. "No, this is between me and her. I need to hear what she has to say. I'm tired of secrets." Nathan raked a hand through his hair, desperation etching his features. "I don't like this. You're too far along in your pregnancy to deal with this stress." She squared her shoulders, summoning an inner strength she wasn't sure she possessed. "I have to, for my own peace of mind." When morning came, Cassandra drove herself to the cafe. Rain battered the windows, the sky a turbulent gray. Inside, Vanessa sat at a corner table, hair damp from the downpour. She looked far less glamorous than Cassandra had imagined, just a young woman burdened by regret and exhaustion. Her makeup was smudged, her posture slouched, not a woman plotting revenge, but one unraveling. They talked for nearly an hour. Vanessa confirmed that she and Nathan had never slept together, but the emotional attachment had been intense. She also revealed Genevieve's manipulative tactics, how Genevieve had tried to coerce her into revealing damning evidence against Nathan in exchange for future business. Opportunities. "I was angry," Vanessa confessed, tears brimming in her eyes. "But I can't be part of a witch hunt. Nathan did wrong, yes, but I let my own insecurities push me into that relationship. We were both at fault." Her voice cracked, but there was no self-pity, only raw, stripped-down regret. Listening to Vanessa's story brought Cassandra a strange sense of clarity. She realized that while Nathan had betrayed her trust, he wasn't the cold-hearted philanderer the rumors painted him to be. He was flawed, yes, but human. And in some strange way, so was Vanessa. As Vanessa concluded, Cassandra exhaled a shaky breath. "Thank you for telling me," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm not sure where we go from here, but I appreciate your honesty." Before they could continue, Cassandra felt a sharp pain radiate across her belly. Her eyes widened in alarm as a rush of warmth coursed down her legs. Her water had broken, 6 weeks early. Too early. Panic flared in Vanessa's eyes. "Oh God, you're in labor." Heart pounding, Cassandra nodded, trying to steady her breathing. Her hands clutched the table edge, knuckles white, face pale. Vanessa sprang into action, calling for an ambulance. In the blink of an eye, the rivalry and tension between them took a back seat to the urgent reality of new life about to enter the world. The transformation was instant. Vanessa's voice turned crisp, calm, as she relayed their location. Outside, the storm raged on, as if echoing the whirlwind unfolding in Cassandra's life. Whether or not the baby arrived safely depended on swift action, and on whether Nathan could be there in time to face the ultimate test of their bond. Sirens wailed through the rain-slicked streets as the ambulance sped toward the hospital. Cassandra clutched Vanessa's hand, breaths coming in ragged waves as contractions rocked her body. Despite the swirling chaos, Vanessa remained focused, relaying instructions from the paramedics. In that moment, all enmity dissolved. They were two women, united by empathy and the imminent arrival of a fragile new life. It no longer mattered who had been wrong, who had been betrayed. Only that Cassandra was safe, and the baby had a fighting chance. Nathan raced through traffic, hazard lights flashing, desperately trying to reach the hospital. Rachel called him en route, her voice frantic. "Cassandra's been taken to St. Mercy Hospital. She's in labor, early labor." Fear pulsed through Nathan. Was their baby safe? Would Cassandra be okay? By the time he sprinted into the hospital lobby, he was drenched from the storm outside. Racing to the maternity ward, he nearly collided with Vanessa in the hallway. She was pacing anxiously, her hair hanging in damp strands. Gone was the poised consultant. Standing there now was a woman who had helped save a life. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. "She's in there," Vanessa said quietly, nodding toward the delivery room. "I'll give you both some space." Nathan hesitated, swallowing thickly. "Thank you." He managed to nod in thanks. Vanessa stepped aside. Moments later, Nathan was by Cassandra's side. Her face contorted in pain as doctors and nurses surrounded them, monitoring her vitals and the baby's heart rate. Dr. Montoya glanced up, relief washing over her features when she saw Nathan. "She's stabilized, but we need to proceed carefully. The baby is premature." Cassandra's gaze locked onto Nathan's, tears glistening in her eyes, pain and relief converging. "You're here," she whispered, her voice cracking. Gripping her hand, Nathan choked out, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, Cass." Hours passed in a blur of medical directives, labored breathing, and emotional peaks and valleys. At 3:14 p.m., a piercing cry filled the room. Cassandra and Nathan's baby, a baby girl, arrived. Tiny but astonishingly strong. The medical team whisked her off for immediate neonatal care, ensuring she could breathe and maintain her vitals. Exhausted, Cassandra leaned back against the pillows, tears of relief streaming down her cheeks. Nathan pressed a trembling kiss to her forehead, overwhelmed by gratitude and remorse in equal measure. He could scarcely believe how close they had come to losing this moment of wonder. Later, once Cassandra was settled in a recovery room, they were allowed to see their daughter, tucked in an incubator, wrapped in soft blankets. She clung to life with fierce determination. Cassandra reached in to gently stroke the baby's tiny hand. Nathan stood beside her, silent tears gathering in his eyes as he witnessed the miracle before him. "I love you," he said to Cassandra, voice unsteady. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll spend the rest of my life showing you and her how deeply sorry I am." Cassandra blinked away her tears, heart swelling with conflicting emotions. Relief, lingering hurt, and a hesitant hope. "Let's just focus on our daughter right now," she whispered, voice raw with emotion. In the corridor, Rachel stood with Vanessa, exchanging uneasy glances. Vanessa felt out of place, but something compelled her to wait. When Rachel told her the baby had arrived safely, Vanessa exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Without fanfare, she slipped away, leaving behind a short note for Cassandra. "I'm sorry for everything. Congratulations on your beautiful baby girl." For Nathan and Cassandra, life would never return to its old simplicity. Too much had transpired. Too many wounds opened. Yet in that hospital room, watching the slow, rhythmic rise and fall of their daughter's tiny chest, a glimmer of hope took shape. Perhaps in the aftermath of betrayal and heartbreak, a new chapter could begin, one defined by the power of second chances and the unwavering bond of a family, tested by storms, but not destroyed. Thank you for joining us on this tumultuous journey of love, betrayal, and unexpected alliances. From a single midnight text to the hospital corridor where new life arrived, Nathan and Cassandra's story proves that even the strongest bonds can be tested. But with honesty, redemption, and courage, they can also be rebuilt. The question of trust lingers, yet so does the promise of a second chance, especially with a newborn life illuminating their path forward. Dear friend, life has a way of testing us in the quietest and most unexpected ways. Not with noise, but with moments that demand our deepest strength. As the Stoics remind us, we cannot choose our circumstances, but we can always choose our response. In the heartache, in the reckoning, and finally, in the fragile breath of a newborn child, this story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about choosing to begin again. Cassandra and Nathan's journey reminds us that while trust can shatter in an instant, rebuilding it is an act of courage that unfolds day by day. Sometimes healing doesn't come wrapped in perfection, but in tiny, determined hands that teach us how to hope again. Because even after the storm, there's always a sunrise. And the ones who choose to stay and rebuild are often the strongest of all. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking the video, sharing it with someone who needs a reminder of second chances, and subscribing to our channel for more heartfelt stories like this. Your support means everything.